Okay, I'm going to call the meeting to order. Welcome, everyone. And please be patient during this process because I suppose calling it an arduous task is something of a misnomer. But anyway, here we go. So, as required under the Planning Act, a public meeting is being held prior to the committee making a decision on these applications. And I'll start out by introducing all our committee members. We have remotely Mrs. Richardson, Mrs. Archer, Mr. Strangway, Councillor Yeo, and Mr. Marsh. And I'm Mr. Robertson, a part of the committee as well. And let's see. I guess I better go. All right, well, I'll start with staff. And staff remotely, we've got Planner 2, Mr. Harding, Planner 2, Mr. Stainton, the Acting Secretary Treasurer, Mr. Lahi, and we've got the Acting Manager of Planning, Ms. Berry. And here with me is our Recording Secretary, Ms. Crawford. Okay, I think we got everybody. All right. Always miss somebody, but I think we got everyone this time. All right. The first thing I'd like to do is put the committee to work. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda as printed? Okay, Mr. Strangway and Ms. Archer. Any comments or questions with respect to the agenda? All right, being none, all those in favor? Okay, now I'm not seeing everybody, so of the committee, so. Yeah, thank you, that carries. Ryan, I'm not seeing everyone of the committee. I should probably, can we do that? Or? Okay, all right. The committee members, could you all turn your cameras on?
I've been disabled, because the host has disabled it.
Okay, Dave, what I would ask then is that if you wish to speak or whatever, you're just going to have to butt in, and I have no problem with that if your camera's not working, okay?
Not mine. It says the host is...
What's that?
I was on earlier.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it's technology, so sometimes it works, sometimes... Oh, there you are. Very good.
Okay.
All right.
Back.
Now, Councillor Yeo, I don't see you. Oh, there he is. Okay. All right. So I got everyone there then. That's all right. So far, so good. All right. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest? All right. Yes, Councillor Yeo. Go ahead.
Yes, Mr. Chair. I have I am actually an applicant on file CAO 2021-035, so I'll be excusing myself at that time.
Thank you for that, sir. All right. Very good. Are there any other declarations of pecuniary interest? All right, being none. Let's see. Are there any comments or questions with respect to the minutes from the last meeting? All right, being none, then can I get a motion to adopt those minutes as printed? Yep, okay, Ms. Richardson, Mr. Marsh, I seen your hand there for a second. All right, all those in favor? And that carries. And just for your information, committee members, when we get to the actual applications, I'm going to be asking for a recorded vote, the same as we did the last meeting. And that way we know that everyone's covered with respect to having voted. So, all right. For the benefit of everyone online, the committee will hear comments, gather information, and may ask questions to clarify statements made. The committee may ask and answer questions or redirect questions to the appropriate person. Please note that any information or comments given to the committee during this meeting is considered evidence. We will first hear from staff, then the applicant or his or her agent. We will then hear from any person in support of or from those who have questions, concerns, or are opposed to the application. And finally, the applicant or his or her agent will have an opportunity to respond to any of the statements made to the committee. And for those folks that wish to speak, I would ask that you give us your name when you come on the screen, and we will afford you 10 minutes to make your presentation. I don't think we've ever had anyone go that long, but some people like to talk. So, and if you feel that you can't get it all in 10 minutes, then I will ask the committee if we may extend your time, but that has never happened. Most people are well within the time parameters. So, but just as a reminder for everyone. All right. So getting this show on the road then. The first one we're dealing with is file number D20-2021-006, and this is 2 Huntington Court, and the planner is Mr. Stainton. Go ahead, Mr. Stainton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon, committee. Just let me share my screen. Can everyone see the Committee of Adjustment screen?
Yeah, I see heads bobbing. I think we're okay.
Good. So the purpose and effect of this application is to request relief from the following provisions in order to facilitate the construction of a 2-story boathouse, as well as acknowledge the location of a garden shed within the front yard. As the reliefs pertain to the 2-story boathouse, the relief sought is from section 3.1.5.3 to increase the number of stories of a boathouse from 1 story to 2 stories, and from section 3.1.5.3b to increase the height of a boathouse from 4.5 meters to 5.5 meters. With respect to the garden shed, they're requesting relief from section 3.1.2.1 to acknowledge the location of an accessory building which is not part of the main building within the front yard. The application was originally submitted December 16th, 2020. I would like to emphasize that no consultation nor the pre-screening process occurred with the Planning Division prior to the submission of the application. The application was originally scheduled for the April 2021 committee meeting. On April 1st, 2021, the supervisor for Part H sewage systems of the Building and Septic Division provided the Planning Division with a letter identifying that the application as proposed could not be supported. A sewage system permit to install was issued to replace the existing sewage system serving the single detached dwelling. However, the proposal did not accommodate for an allowance for habitable space, which was identified as a sunroom in the previous submission, within the boathouse. The supervisor of Part H sewage systems advised that the boathouse be reconfigured or the existing septic system permit is to be amended in order to account for human habitation within the boathouse. A deferral to address the concerns with respect to the reference to human habitation was granted by the committee at the April 18th, 2021 meeting. The applicant subsequently modified the proposal by removing reference to human habitation within the 2nd story of a boathouse and eliminated a cantilever deck projecting into the water setback from the 2nd story balcony. No additional structural changes or modifications to the proposal were made. The subject property is located on a relatively quiet cul-de-sac comprised of 3 narrow linear lots created through consent in the 1990s. The property is elongated with a gravel driveway that winds through mature mixed deciduous forest, which is actually a considerable distance from from Huntington Court, as you can see here, before terminating at the dwelling with a walkout basement. The dwelling was constructed in 2001 according to MPAC and overlooks Sturgeon Lake. Attached to the dwelling on the north side is a 2-bay garage that you will see in subsequent slides. Shown here is a site plan with an overview of the lot provided near the top, as you can see here, and a more detailed plan provided of the proposed development below. In total, the boathouse will be 209.3 square meters, or 2,252.9 square feet in size. Please note that the dimension includes the proposed covered deck in the calculation. This slide depicts the elevations for the proposed two-story boathouse. Note the internal staircase, as well as the walk-in from grade proposed on the west side of the boathouse, as well as the covered deck on the water side. Although the applicant has revised the proposal to stipulate that second story is supposed to function as storage, one can reasonably infer that the proposed design and exterior treatments, which include, as you can see, 3 glass doors on the water side and a double door entrance from the walkout, present a considerable extension of amenity space. Shown here are the floor plans, again showing the internal staircase in the drawing on the left, as well as the right. Shown here is the dwelling. Obviously, these site visit photos were taken in the wintertime with the attached 2-bay garage that was previously mentioned on the left, facing eastward from the driveway, with the photo on the right taken of the dwelling facing southwest from the approximate location of the southwest corner of the boathouse. Again, a photo here of the dwelling taken from Sturgeon Lake on the left. Note the small building on the left-hand side of the photo, as well as the armor stone hardscaping in the bottom right-hand portion of the photo. With the slide on the right showing the approximate location for the boathouse where the snowmobile tracks come down the slope and the boat lift here are. You can see the considerable slope towards the shoreline that the proposed design of the boathouse would essentially be cut into. Before I go back to the boathouse, I want to address the small garden shed that exists in the front yard as shown on the left and again in the slide on the right. So on the slide on the right, you can see here is the shed. I just wanted to inform everyone that this is actually a trailer and it's not a structure. So the use of the shed is apparent as it's used to store items used in the maintenance of the parking area or driveway. Given the distance, which is over 261 meters between the shed and the entrance to the property from Huntington Court, combined with the privacy created from the buffering of the woodlands, the presence of the shed is undetectable from Huntington Court. This particular relief is minor and desirable and appropriate for the use of the land. The scale of the proposed 2-story boathouse is anticipated to be visually imposing when compared to the design and built form of most of the boathouses on Sturgeon Lake. Most legal boathouses on Sturgeon Lake are a single story, and the massing of the proposed design, including a partially covered deck, is anticipated to present negative land use compatibility issues considering the potential for human habitation. The Township of Fenland zoning bylaw is clear in the standards allowed for boathouses. The bylaw prescribes that only 1 story is permitted and that when the structure is constructed more than 3 meters away from the shoreline, the height is to be measured from the finished grade. Due to the irregular slope of the land, the height of the boathouse is calculated based on the average elevation of grade. Again, you can see the grade here in the photos associated with the proposed location of the boathouse. I want to take this opportunity to emphasize to committee that boathouses are intended to house and shelter boats, watercraft, and modes of water transportation, as well as items associated with such watercraft. The primary intent behind limiting boathouses to 1 story is to prevent human habitation in order to protect personal property and human life. Recently adopted additional residential unit or ARU policies and regulations restrict the establishment of habitable units within boathouses and within the water yard and hazard lands altogether. While the determination that the boathouse is located outside of the regulatory flood elevation has been made by Kawartha Conservation as shown in their comments, there is no evidence that the geotechnical stability of the slope for which the boathouse is being constructed into has been examined. Through constructing a second story on the boathouse, the opportunity for the conversion of space into a separate habitable unit with the potential to connect to the adjacent septic system is presented. Despite the drawings and the acknowledgement of the applicant that the second story is for storage, the height of the second story at 4.19 meters is comparable to the height of a residential story. I must clarify that it is the second story itself, not a loft within that second story, that is the concern as it relates to habitable space. Loft storage within the boathouse could be achieved at a height much less than what is proposed through this application. One of the intents of restricting the height of boathouses at 4.5 meters is intended to prevent the ability to access boathouses from higher elevations. When a boathouse is constructed into a slope, entrances or amenity space atop the boathouse can be constructed. Through proposing the increase in height by an entire meter to 5.5 meters, the application contravenes the intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw by allowing the ability to access the upper level of the boathouse from the existing grade. The Sturgeon Lake shoreline, in particular, is one of the most heavily developed of the Kawartha Lakes. From an official plan perspective, policies 20.3.7 and 20.3.10 strive to limit building and structure heights so as to maintain a low profile and blend in with the natural surroundings. Policy 20.5.1, related to density and massing within the waterfront designation, also requires buildings and structures to maintain a low profile. When examining the proposal from the water, as was done during the visit in winter, the height and massing of the proposed boathouse will dominate the shoreline of the property and completely detract from the dwelling atop of the slope. When combined with the hardscaping shoreline of the property, the proposal is incompatible with Objective 5 of the Sturgeon Lake Management Plan, which resolves to enhance and maintain natural integrity of the shoreline. Policy 20.3.11 of the official plan encourages individual lake management plans as a means towards identifying lake character. Planning Division records indicate that a two-story boathouse was approved by the Committee of Adjustment in October of 2012 for the abutting property to the south, addressed as 604 Long Beach Road, as shown in both these slides. Notwithstanding a staff recommendation for the proposal to be denied, it must be emphasized that every application is evaluated on its own merits, notwithstanding adjacent development and approvals. These slides here are taken of the shoreline to the south of the subject lands. And as you can see on the slide on the left, it's actually to the south of the boathouse that I just showed. Note in the slide on the right, the naturalized shoreline to the south and how a one-story boathouse can essentially blend in with the surroundings almost to the point where you can barely tell where it is. If you look right here in the middle, there's a one-story boathouse. Looking to the north, we can see a nearly identical boathouse to what is being proposed, located at 6 Huntington Court. It is understood that this was constructed pre-2001. Therefore, Planning Division does not have any record of minor variance kept in-house. As one looks north along the shoreline, you can see that this particular reach of Sturgeon Lake has more prominent boathouses. However, that is not the case for the lake as a whole. This is just a duplicate slide. Upon conducting the site visit associated with the variance application, planning staff identified a small storage building located within the water yard setback of the property. In fact, the slope is actually right here, and you can see some of the shoreline vegetation right behind it. The owners have agreed to remove the building, and a condition is recommended in order to ensure the building is entirely removed from the property. Comments were received from Engineering and Corporate Assets Division and Community Services Division stating they have no concerns with the proposal. The Building and Plans Examiner of the Building and Septic Division notes that although not a requirement of the minor variance, they note that the proposed cantilever covered deck will require engineering or conventional support. in the form of posts and footings. No representation of the deck and the roof being cantilevered 1.2 meters into the 3-meter setback has been proposed on the site plan. So I just wanted to respond by saying that I can confirm that the applicant has revised the proposal by eliminating the cantilevered covered deck from the proposal as shown in appendices C and D. The supervisor of the Part 8 sewage systems within the Building and Septic Division notes that a sewage system permit to install has been issued to replace the existing system. The replacement system will be located in a manner to accommodate the proposed boathouse placement. The purpose of the second story will be for storage only. As such, the Building and Septic Division has no objection to the proposed minor variance as it relates to private on-site sewage disposal. Excuse me. The Kawartha Region Conservation Authority also provided comments by stating that a site visit was conducted on September 17th, 2020, which confirmed that the proposed boathouse will be outside of the floodplain for Sturgeon Lake. Kawartha Conservation has issued a permit for the proposal and has no concerns with the proposed variance. Public comments were received with the application in support of the proposal from Brian and Jill Hogue of 6 Huntington Court, which was received on December 16th, 2020, and Jennifer and Byron Allen of 604 Long Beach Road, dated September 7th, 2020, received December 16th, 2020. Based on review of the application and the contents of the report, it is the opinion of staff that the relief in relation to the acknowledgement of the location of the garden shed within the front yard meets the tests of a minor variance and be approved subject to the conditions of the report. However, reliefs 1 and 2 of the application related to the boathouse do not meet any of the 4 tests of a minor variance, and staff respectfully recommends denial of the reliefs pertaining to the 2-story boathouse.
All right, thank you, Mr. Stainton. Are there questions of the planner by committee members? Mr. Strangway, go ahead.
Yeah, 2 or 3 questions. So if I understand correctly, there are a number of 2-story boathouses right in the neighborhood there that have been, and some of them have been approved in the last 5 years.
Mr.
Through you,
Stainton?
Mr. Chair, I cannot attest to any being approved in the last 5 years. The one that I am aware of was approved in 2012. And again, it was contrary to staff recommendation. There also may be an issue with respect to knowledge of the official plan, as that was the approximate time when the new City of Kawartha Lakes official plan came out. Okay.
And so sorry about that. So about 8 years ago, one was approved. And if I understand correctly, in that area, there are a number of 2-story boathouses which are on the lake shore.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I am aware of 2 that legally obtained building permits that are on that stretch.
And am I also correct that all of the other divisions, septic, building, so on, there are no objections to this other than through the Committee of Adjustments?
Through you, Mr. Chair, the only concern that was raised was the building and plans examiner with respect to the cantilevering of the deck, which has since been removed.
Okay, that's fine for right now, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Are there further questions of the planner from committee? All right, being none, is the owner applicant online? And do you wish to speak to the application?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, Mr.
Yes.
Okay, just for the record, Mr. Newhook, would you state your name?
Travis Marin.
Okay, go ahead, sir.
I believe.
Hey, who have I got here?
Can I jump in here? My name is Gary Newhook. I'm the agent.
Okay,
And
who wishes
I've
to
got-
speak? I've got two on the screen there. Does Mr. Marin or Mr. Newhook?
Yeah, I'd like Gary to speak, please.
All right, Mr. Newhook, go ahead.
All right. My name is Gary Newhook. I'm the agent for the applicant, which is Mr. Marin. I'm glad to see he's on the screen there. He's gonna try and get on. If I can give some background on this proposal, when I started discussions with Ken Stanton in the fall of 2020, I mentioned the property to the south, and then I did the minor variance back in 2012. So I had a little bit of experience, and I've done quite a few minor variances. And then this minor variance for Mr. Marin looked to be very similar. And at the time, I didn't see the need to go for a pre-consultation, as the proposed boathouse was smaller in size. In discussing the 2012 minor variance, and we did discuss this with Mr. Stanton, and there was no mention to remove the 3.1.1 habitable space, because that was actually on the minor variance for 2012. And so I just used the same 3 points. Hindsight, we should have gone for the pre-consultation, I guess. And at the time, the April 15 minor variance, we agreed to defer the minor variance to remove 3.1.1.1 habitable space. And there was never any intent to put habitable space. It was just part of that original one. And that was our error. Back in the fall of 2020, we applied for the septic review and found we didn't have enough space between the septic and the boathouse, and a new septic would have to be installed. This was done, and a new septic was issued for the construction of a 2-story boathouse with no habitable space. We made the changes to the minor variance and applied for the hearing. During the agency review, which was required for the minor variance, the building department commented on the overhang, the lakeside. And to keep the process going, we decided to remove the overhang. And we're not really sure why this was not noticed on the first go around with building, but so be it. It is now removed from the plan. The boathouse building size, the boathouse itself is 24 by 45 on the outside. And inside, because of the engineering walls, you're looking at a dimension of 23 by 43 or 92 square meters inside. There's a 38-foot boat that will be stored in the boathouse. So the space is required on the lower end of the boathouse itself for just the boat. The second story is 24 by 36 or 864, 80 square meters with a 9 by 36 or 30 square meter covered deck. So the total area of the boathouse and the second story of enclosed space is 172 square meters. So it is a little bit less than what Mr. Stanton has done, but he's included the covered deck on there as well. The building height in section 3, paragraph I, paragraph 4, the report talks about the height of the second story to be 4.19 meters. This is the height of the cathedral ceiling. In other words, from the top of the floor to the ceiling, from the top of the 8-foot wall to the ceiling height is 1.7 meters. There's no way that you're going to get a room above this 8-foot wall, if this is what Mr. Stanton was referring to. The pitch of the boathouse roof matches that of the house, a 9/12 pitch, just to keep things in perspective. The cathedral ceiling is achieved by using a scissor truss rather than a common truss to build a room in the loft, as what is being insinuated would give a usable space of 5 feet. This is tapered now down to the top of the walls by 36 feet long. Not sure why this is even considered, as it's not practical as usable space. It's just space is being used because we want to have windows on the ends of the boathouse. The high ceiling is intended for windows to the gable end only. The cathedral design roof was to copy the house appearance and keep an attractive look from the roof. The ceiling height, the height of the internal walls are 8 feet. Normal size of a room, if you will. The roof is at a 9/12 pitch to match the house and adds 10 feet to the peak of the boathouse, or it's 18 feet to the peak. I've done 3 samples of roof design to show what it would look like to go down to a 4.5 meter height in the mean roof. Is there any way we can get the pictures that I have sent? I'm not sure if they were sent yesterday, and I was told that they were going to be made available.
We have them.
No pictures.
Yeah, I'm
So,
advised
Councillor,
that Mr. Newhook, they apparently came in the 11th hour, and because of technological concerns or problems,
Okay.
I don't believe we have them. Do we? No, we don't. So please go ahead.
Okay, to get down to a 4.5 meter, it would mean that the pitch would have to go down to a 312 pitch, which basically is a flat roof. I mean, there's no window, there's no nothing, and it does take away the character of the boathouse. It's unfortunate that because I had a picture shown on there of that. And I've also shown a 3D picture of that, but I guess we're capable of get that going. All right, minor in nature and desirable. There are 17 boathouses on the shoreline towards Fenelon Falls, and 12 have second stories. From the start of the channel into Fenelon Falls, almost all the boathouses have second stories, just the nature of the landscape in there with the high walls or cliffs, if you will. Across from Sturgeon Lake, we have Sturgeon Point Community, where almost all the shoreline boats have second stories. I've lived on Sturgeon Lake for 22 years, and although I have not counted them all, at least 50% of the shoreline boathouses have second stories. To say that my client's boathouse is not desirable is questionable. But given the number of 2-story boathouses on Sturgeon Lake, I think this is a minor in nature. The boathouse adjacent north and south to the proposed are larger in size and higher. The proposed boathouse is to be built into the shoreline. The second story will start at the upper grade, and this will give access to the boathouse from the second story and give a pleasing appearance to the building. The following pictures show the boathouse directly to the north and south. And I guess because we couldn't show the other one, we can't show these pictures as well. It was basically the same ones that Mr. Stanton has shown, but it's summertime. And it actually shows the landscape of the shoreline. Boathouses are primarily intended to house and shelter boats for about 5 months of the year. After that, anything that is outside is stored in the boathouse. Furniture, waterhouse, toys, landscaping stuff, etc. You never have enough storage space when you're on the lake. And believe me, I just moved from the lake and I had a 40 by 50 garage in the back, plus a 2-car garage on my house. And that 40 by 50 was always jammed with stuff.
You've got about 2 minutes, Mr. Newhook.
Okay. There was a permit taken out 4 years ago for landscaping work that was done on the shoreline, as shown in the pictures. And again, we don't have the pictures. The shoreline of this property was allowed through permits to have shoreline landscape, and the long-term plan was to add the boathouse. There was no intent to pollute the shoreline. The shoreline is stone and rubble. The addition of the boathouse is well planned and designed to fit the terrain and help stabilize the shoreline. Now, I've somewhere missed the conservation. How big is the conservation? Am I still on? Because my screen just went black.
You're still on.
Oh. Hello, am I still online?
Yeah, we can
Yeah.
see you.
If I leave it on, it cuts the volume by about half. So we can't hear.
All right, I apologize for that. The conservation were out to observe when we took out the permit, and they did bring an engineer along with them, and they took measurements as far as the slope on the shoreline, and there was no objections to the slope that was there. There seems to be a feeling that having the cathedral ceiling, a loft can be added. This is not the primary intent of the cathedral ceilings. All right, in this case, a copy of the main building and add windows in the gable ends. The height from the 8-foot walls to the center is 5'7" down to nothing. Plus you have to allow for 14 inches to put a floor up there if you are going to try and put something in the loft. Just not a practical. Our design fits into the surrounding properties and the majority of boathouses on Sturgeon Lake. Thank you.
And thank you, sir. Are there any questions of Mr. Newhook? Right, I don't see any. Thank you, Mr. Newhook. Is there anyone online wishing to speak in support of this application? In support of this application? Anyone online wishing to speak in opposition to this application? Opposition to this application? Committee, where are we? Mr. Strangway.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I want to first of all say that I appreciate Mr. Newhook's presentation. And just to let you know, Mr. Newhook, that we did receive all of the photographs and did have a chance to look at them. So while they're maybe not available here technically today, each of the committee members did receive those photographs, as Mr. Marsh indicated. I really have mixed feelings about this because I understand what staff are saying.
I'd like
but
to.
I also,
Yeah. I'd like, if we're going to speak to it, I would like a motion first if you're prepared to do that, Mr. Strangway.
okay, I'm going to give you a motion to approve as printed.
All right. Do I have a seconder? Mr. Marsh, you seconding? All right,
Yes.
go ahead, Mr. Strangway.
Thanks. I guess what I struggle with is we have these policies about boathouses and so on, and I understand them perfectly. And yet, as Mr. Newhook has said, there are all kinds of two-story boathouses on Sturgeon Lake, on Balsam Lake, and people come forward in looking to improve their properties and do something positive. As Mr. Newhook said, I don't think any way you're going to have living space up there with the 5-foot walls and so on. It certainly makes it easier for storage to be able to walk around. And what he's proposing, what we're seeing here, I think is very attractive for the shoreline and certainly fits in. And where I really struggle is where we say, while your neighbors have this, you can't have this. So it's something that, as I say, it seems to be in the area, two-story boathouses. It's very attractive design. And so that's why I'm putting forward the proposal to approve it. Thank you.
Mr. Marsh, did you wish to speak to it?
I'd just like to, I agree with Mr. Strangway. I think it addresses everything that we've looked at and we discussed previously about boathouses. And as I said, we did get the conceptual drawing of what it would look like without. And if I were a neighbor or I was anyone else, I'd be more concerned about that than I would what's being proposed. And we've established, it's already established. And I think this discussion took place the last time the committee supported a similar application. And it basically was based on the fact that not the majority, but a large percentage of the boathouses have the second story. So I'm in full favor of this.
Any other committee members wish to speak to this application or to the motion? I guess, Mr. Stainton, the only question I have is, I'm a little confused because we've talked in the past generally with respect to where we have added restrictions or conditions on these applications whereby we wouldn't want habitable space within these buildings. However, I guess I'm confused because it seems to me that we've been told, and I believe it was the provincial policy statement or one of those, whereby we weren't to be adding those restrictions because there was, I guess, for lack of a better term, there was a lack of housing, and so they were going to accept these sort of things. And then I'm seeing with this additional residential unit that there's been policies and regulations in place now through the official plan amendment and zoning bylaw that we're restricting that type of habitation. Can you clarify that for me?
Absolutely, Mr. Chair. The intent and the policies and regulations that were brought forth through the official plan amendment, as well as the amendment to the zoning bylaws, are to enable additional residential units. However, there are situations or restrictions on when those units can be established. In the case of water setback as well as hazard lands, we do not permit additional residential units. That's basically a universal criteria that that was imposed through the OPAs and the zoning bylaw amendments.
All right, but I guess as indicated through Mr. Newhook's presentation he's made, that in fact it would probably be pretty difficult, given the configuration here, for habitable space to be a part of that that structure anyway. So, all right, is there anything further from committee members on this motion? Yes, Mr. Richardson, go ahead.
I just want a clarification on the motion. Is it as printed as the planner recommended?
Well, thank you, because I was going to ask Mr. Strangway, because we've got a denial for the two sections with respect to the boathouse. So before I was calling for a vote, obviously you're going to amend the motion so that we don't deny, or you don't deny those two, and in fact you're going to have them pass, correct?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, my intention may be poor wording. My intention is to approve the application.
All right, but we can't, all right, we can't, all right, that's fine. Perhaps stop right there then, rather than as printed. So we'll just approve the application. I don't know, I think for the motion, we best add that you're also approving the section 3153 and section 3153B. I think we better put that in there so it's clear in the motion. Okay?
That's fine with me.
All right. All right, now I'll go. Yes, Mr. Stainton, that's exactly, I wanted to go back to you. Go ahead.
You read my mind. Through you, Mr. Chair, I can essentially craft a recommendation to the effect of other approvals that we do with respect to appendices A to D, illustrating that that they be recommended or for approval in accordance with the appendices within the report. And in addition, I could put the timeline for the 24-month window to obtain the building permit.
All right, but I'm not sure we even need to go that far. I'm thinking that all we need to do is amend this, the report that's, or the motion that's before us, just to say that reliefs 1 and 2 sought for the minor variance application be granted, as the reliefs do meet the 4 tests, because that's what Mr. Strangway is indicating, that from his perspective, these do meet the 4 tests. Mr. Strangway, am I correct?
Yes, that's correct, Mr. Chairman.
So does that create a problem for planning then, if we just amend those to read granted and that they do meet the 4 tests? Stain?
It does, through you, Mr. Chair, it does not present a problem. I was merely tying the conditions that are typical of an approval to the recommendation.
Well, it's about as clear as mud for me right now. So my question to you, Mr. Stainton, is this. If we were, the motion on the floor is to grant this application and the entire thing. So if that's the case, would that mean that you would have perhaps add some conditions then, if it's to be granted?
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, that was the intention.
All right. Now, we're not sure of what your conditions might be, so I don't know if I'm comfortable. So you're, yeah.
So I have prepared an alternative recommendation. And either we can take a quick recess and I can craft those and send them over, or I can just read them to you if you wish.
Committee, are you happy with the read, or do you want to take 5 and let them? Are you happy with the read or what?
Read.
Yes. All right, I got heads nodding, so go ahead if you just want to read them, Mr. Stainton.
Sure, just give me 1 second to pull up the recommendation. All right, so in terms of the conditions, that building and construction for the addition, for the boathouse to this approval shall proceed substantially in accordance with sketch in Appendix C and the elevations in Appendix D submitted as part of report COA 2021-024, which shall be attached to and form part of the committee's decision. Condition, well, I guess it would be condition, it'll be condition 2, that within 24 months after the date of the notice of decision, the owners shall submit to the Secretary Treasurer photographic evidence confirming that the building identified on Appendix C to report C of A or COA 2021-006 as shed to be removed has been removed. And finally, 3, that the building construction related to the minor variances shall be completed within a period of 24 months after the date of the notice of decision, failing which this application shall be deemed to be refused. This condition will be considered fulfilled upon completion of the first building inspection.
And you're finished? All right. Mr. Strangway, you're good with that?
Yes, that sounds fine to me. I'm
Yep.
assuming that that's what Mr. Newhook was looking for, and that allows the construction as we have talked about.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. And Mr. Marsh, you're okay with that as well?
Yeah.
Yeah, all right. All right, then. That being the case, I'm going to ask for a recorded vote. So, Mr. Strangway, in favor or opposed?
In favor?
All right. Mr. Marsh?
In favor.
All right. Mrs. Richardson?
In favor?
Okay. Mrs. Archer?
In favor?
Councillor Yo?
In favor.
Okay, and I'm in favor. Right. All right, to Mr. Newhook and Mr. Marin, your application is approved.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, moving right along. Oh. We're now dealing with file number D20-2021-009, and this one is the, where are we? 39 Elliott Street, former village of Fenland Falls. And go ahead, Mr. Stainton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can you see my slides? Yes.
Yes.
Great.
Oh, I can.
you.
Like, I'm hoping the rest can. Yes.
I am as well.
Yeah, it's good. Go ahead.
So the purpose and effect of this application is to request relief from the following provisions of the former Village of Fenelon Falls zoning bylaw in order to fulfill a condition of provisional consent associated with a lot line adjustment as part of consent file D03-2020-022. The first relief sought is from section 4.3.2A to reduce the minimum lot area from 670 square meters to 398.6 square meters. And the second relief from section 4.3.2B is to reduce the minimum frontage requirement from 18 meters to 13.8 meters. On February 24th, 2021, the Director of Development Services, as delegated by Council, granted provisional consent for file D03-2020-022 to sever approximately 172.9 square meters from 39 Elliott Street and add the lands to 35 Elliott Street, resulting in an approximately 537 square meter parcel. Condition 3 of the provisional consent approval requires a variance to the proposed retained parcel in order to recognize a reduced lot area and frontage from the resulting lot. Upon reviewing the submitted application, staff determined that the resultant configuration of the benefiting lands identified as 35 Elliott Street would also be deficient in lot area in accordance with the provisions of the residential type 1 zone within the Village of Fenelon Falls zoning bylaw. A revised staff recommendation was issued on March 4th, 2021. As is common practice with variances required as conditions of provisional consent, all associated properties that are subject to variances are typically heard at the same hearing for convenience. As opposed to hearing variance application D20-2021-009 at the March 18th, 2021 meeting and the variance application for 35 Elliott Street at a subsequent meeting, planning staff requested the committee consider deferring the application for a period of not more than 2 months, with the applications returning concurrently at the latest to the May 2021 meeting. Request for deferral was granted. Just give me a second here. Yeah, that's better. The subject property is situated in a well-established residential neighborhood composed of single and two-story dwellings. The majority of the dwellings within the immediate vicinity of the subject property are over 80 years old and part of an older plan of subdivision. The present-day lot fabric was created as part of the previously mentioned plan of subdivision. Please note that the appendix identified as Appendix B in the original submission is for the adjacent property. Revised Appendix B showing the correct property location has been provided. As shown on the sketch for severance, the subject property is fully developed with a single detached dwelling, driveway, and accessory garage to the rear. Both lots as part of the consent application are also connected to full municipal servicing. For these reasons, the proposed reductions in lot area and frontage are not anticipated to adversely impact the character of the neighborhood. Noteworthy is the fact that many of the neighboring lots also possess similar lot area and frontage dimensions. The proposed variance will address an encroachment issue relating to the location of a driveway and gravel pad by giving the benefiting lot at 35 Elliott Street supplemental interior rear yards or interior side yard space. The photo on the left shows 39 Elliott Street, which is the subject lands shown here, from the front yard onto Elliott Street, with the photo on the right showing the proposed severed lands and the aforementioned driveway and gravel pad in question. The slide on the left shows the benefiting lands at 35 Elliott Street, showing the existing single detached dwelling and the neighboring property to the west. The slide on the right shows the property on the south side of Elliott Street, addressed as 38 Elliott Street, immediately across the road from the subject lands. Shown here in the photo on the left is the abutting property to the east, with the slide on the right showing, it's actually taken facing east, showcasing the interior side yard and a portion of the lands to be donated from the subject lands. So the gravel pad at the bottom here. An intent of the minimum lot area and frontage standards in the bylaw is to ensure adequate spatial separation between a dwelling, well, and septic system. The subject lands were created as part of a registered plan of subdivision that predates the Village of Fenelon Falls zoning bylaw. As both parcels are connected to municipal servicing, the resultant lot area and frontage allows for appropriate servicing and spatial separation. It is also important to note that the Village of Fenelon Falls does not quantify absolute minimum lot area and frontage less than required through a separate provision for both serviced and unserviced lots. The photo on the left here is taken in the rear yard of the subject lands facing southwest, with the photo on the right showing the driveway in the front yard of the subject property. The photo on the left here shows the rear yard of the subject lands with the frame garage shown in the background here between the two conifers. Oh, skipped ahead. With the detached garage in between the two conifers. This garage was constructed in 1942 according to MPAC. The photo on the right shows the rear yards of the recipient lands with the adjacent grocery store, which is the Sobeys, just shown here to the north. Comments were received from Engineering and Corporate Assets Division and the Building and Septic Division stating they have no concerns with the proposal. Based on the contents of the report, staff acknowledges the application meets all 4 tests of a minor variance, and staff respectfully recommends approval of the subject application, subject to the conditions identified within the report.
All right, committee members, are there any questions of the planner? Okay, Mrs. Archer, go ahead.
Through you, please, to the planner. When I was looking at Appendix B, do I take it it didn't look like there was any room to give any land because of there's a building on either side. Are both of those sheds gone?
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, both of the shed and the garage that are depicted in the interior side yards have been removed, as seen in the pictures, yes.
Thank you.
All right, anything further from committee? All right, being none, is the applicant online? Does the applicant wish to speak to this? Apparently not. Is there anyone online wishing to speak in support of this application, in support of the application? Anyone wishing to speak in opposition to the application? Opposition to the application? Committee. Mrs. Archer.
As printed?
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Yeo. All right. Any further comments or questions? All right. Ms. Archer, in favor? Opposed?
In favor?
All right. Councillor Yeo.
In favor.
All right. Mr. Marsh.
In favor.
Okay. Mr. Strangway.
In favor?
Mrs. Richardson.
In favor?
And I'm in favor. Thank you very much. The application is approved. And moving right along, we're now dealing with file number D20-2021-017, and this is 35 Elliott Street. And go ahead, Mr. Stainton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Share my screen. Take it, everyone can see it. It looks like everything is clear.
Yeah, go ahead.
The purpose and effect of this application is to request relief from section 4.3.2A to reduce the minimum lot area from 670 square meters to 537 square meters. Again, in order to fulfill a condition of provisional consent associated with the aforementioned lot line adjustment as part of consent file D03-2020-022. On February 24th, 2021, the Director of Development Services, as delegated by Council, granted provisional consent for file D03-2020-022 to sever approximately 172.9 square meters from 39 Elliott Street and add the lands to 35 Elliott Street, resulting in approximately 537 square meter parcel. Condition 3 of the provisional consent approval requires a variance to the proposed retained parcel to recognize the lot area and frontage for the resultant lot. It should say the benefiting parcel. Upon reviewing the submitted application, staff determined that the resultant configuration of the subject lands would also be deficient in area in spite of receiving the severed lands in accordance with the provisions of the residential type 1 zone of the Fenelon Falls zoning bylaw. A revised staff recommendation was issued on March 4th, 2021. As is common practice with variances required as conditions of provisional consent, all associated properties that are subject to the variances are typically heard at the same hearing for convenience. As opposed to hearing variance application D 2020-2021-009 at the March 18th, 2021 meeting, and the variance application for 35 Elliott Street at subsequent hearing, planning staff requested the committee consider deferring the application for a period of not more than 2 months, with the applications returning concurrently at the latest meeting, at latest to the May 2021 meeting. The request for deferral was granted, and this application was deemed complete on March 19th, 2021. The subject property is situated in a well-established residential neighborhood composed of single and two-story dwellings. The majority of the dwellings are within the immediate vicinity of the subject property. The dwellings within the immediate vicinity of the subject property are over 80 years old and part of an older plan of subdivision. The property is fully developed with a single detached dwelling and driveway. Both lots are also connected to full municipal servicing. For these reasons, the proposed reduction in lot area is not, and I should qualify that it's a lot area reduction lower than what is required, even though it is actually getting bigger, will not adversely impact the character of the neighborhood. Noteworthy is the fact that many neighboring lots are comprised of a similar lot area. The proposed variance will address an encroachment issue related to the location of an existing driveway and gravel pad on the subject lands, increasing the interior side yard space in the process. The slide on the left shows the existing single detached dwelling on the subject lands and the neighboring property to the west. The slide on the right shows the proposed severed lands as well as the donating lands at 39 Elliott Street that were the subject of the previous application. Both of these slides depict the character of the neighborhood and the built form associated with the immediate vicinity surrounding the subject lands. As you can see here, this is to the east, and again, the property immediately to the west in the slide on the right. An intent of the minimum lot area provision in the bylaw is to ensure adequate spatial separation between a dwelling, well, and septic system. Lot area also ensures the maintenance of adequate landscape open space and amenity space and stormwater infiltration. The subject lands were created as part of a registered plan of subdivision that predates the Village of Fenelon Falls zoning bylaw. Moreover, as both parcels are connected to municipal servicing, the resultant lot area allows for appropriate servicing and spatial separation. The photo on the left is taken in the rear yard of the subject lands facing southwards. So you can see again the gravel pad and the concrete driveway. With the photo on the right taken from the rear yard of the subject lands. So essentially just to the north of where the slide on the left was, the picture in the slide on the left was taken from. Shown here is the same western interior lot line, just taken from the front yard, with the photo on the right showing a portion of the frontage of the subject lands facing eastward. Comments were received from Engineering and Corporate Assets Division and Building and Septic Division, stating they have no concerns with the proposal. Based on the contents of the report, staff acknowledges the application meets all 4 tests of a minor variance, and staff respectfully recommends approval of the application subject to the conditions identified within the report. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Are there any questions of the planner by committee members? All right, being none. Is the applicant online? Does the applicant wish to speak to the application? Apparently not. Is there anyone online wishing to speak in support of the application? In support of the application? Anyone wishing to speak in opposition to the application? Opposition to the application? Being committee. Mr. Richardson?
As recommended by staff.
Okay. Seconder? Councilor Yeo? Yep, all right. Comments or questions? All those in favor? We've got, okay, Mrs. Richardson.
Favor?
All right, Councilor Yeo.
In favor?
All right, Mr. Marsh.
In favor.
Okay, Mr. Strangway.
In favor?
Mrs. Archer.
In favor?
And I'm in favor. All right, thank you very much. The application is approved. All right, moving right along, we're now dealing with file number D20-2021-018, and this is 25 McCrae Crescent, former village of Woodville. And Mr. Harding, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon, committee. Just bear with me while I share my screen.
Go ahead.
Okay,
Yeah, looks good.
wonderful. So this application proposes to reduce a exterior side yard from 7.5 meters down to 6 in order to facilitate the construction of a new single detached dwelling shown on the current slide here. This is a corner lot located in the northwestern section of Woodville in a new plan of subdivision called Maple Hills that's currently under construction. It's going to be difficult. There we go. As you can see right now, this aerial photograph is a little bit older, but all the lots are vacant at this time. That's not the case going forward, as committee will see shortly. So here we have a picture of the sketch for the parcel. So it's specific to the exterior side yard or the eastern yard where relief is sought. A 1.5 meter reduction is what they are asking for. Here we have the elevations of the dwelling. And here we have the pictures. So the first 2 pictures are me standing at the northern lot line looking south. And then in the next 2 images here, I've just pivoted to look at the houses across the street. So we can see the house that's pretty much directly across the street is the exact model which is being proposed for this parcel. And then I just pivoted a little bit more. So we're now looking to the northeast of this parcel. And then a little bit more towards looking down the bend that kind of wraps around on the image to the right. So the parcel is on the right side there. So backing up actually to the aerial photograph here. So in this particular case, the reduction being sought is very minimal. There's not going to be any perceptible increase in proximity to the road. And a large part of that is because there is no established building line along this eastern side of the parcel, because as we can see here, the parcel to the south, which is the only other lot that kind of abuts this one on the same side yard, is also a corner lot. So there's no kind of established building form of front yards in this location, which is why, in my opinion, this reduction is not going to be perceptible. And it's also not going to cause any adverse land use conflicts due to the fact that the proximity reduction is quite minor. Moving on, so this parcel is within the urban settlement designation of the official plan, and as such, it complies with the official plan as we have urban development here in the form of a single attached dwelling. Staff does respectfully recommend that the application be granted, subject to the conditions identified in the report. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Okay, committee, are there any questions of the planner? Mrs. Archer, go ahead.
Through you to the planner, could you tell me, please, is there a dwelling built on lot 28?
Let me just have a look to see where lot 28 would fall.
Oh, right south of the property we're dealing with, sorry. I think that's what it is.
Thank you. No, there is no dwelling there at this time.
So if someone buys that property and builds, it will have to be the same? Can it be the same as what we're dealing with now?
No, it would be set slightly back in relation to this this property at number 25.
Unless they apply for a minor variance.
That's correct.
Thank you.
All right, further questions of the planner? All right, being none. Is the applicant online? Does the applicant wish to speak to the application?
I'm here.
Where are we? I don't see anyone.
Sorry, just unable to detect video, the
Okay,
Zoom.
what is your name?
Ashley Prescott.
All right,
I'm a junior planner at DG Biddles.
all right, go ahead.
Good afternoon. My name is Ashley Prescott, and I am a junior planner at DG Biddle and Associates Limited in Oshawa. I am representing David Mancini of Mancini Homes regarding a minor variance at Lot 2, McCrae Crescent in the village of Woodville. The property is part of a 33-lot plan of subdivision with single detached dwellings. It is located at the eastern terminus of McCrae Crescent as part of the Maple Hills subdivision lands. The owner has requested the following variance from the village of Woodville zoning bylaw to reduce the minimum exterior side yard setback from 7.5 meters to 6.08 meters to permit the construction of a detached dwelling. The proposed minor variance meets the following four tests under Section 45, subsection 1 of the Planning Act. Number 1, the variance meets the general intent of the official plan because the subject property is designated urban settlement area within the City of Kawartha Lakes official plan. Number 2, the variance meets the general intent of the zoning bylaw because the subject property is zoned residential type 1, R1 zone within the Village of Woodville zoning bylaw. It permits low-density residential, including detached dwellings. Number 3, the variance is minor in nature because it is a reduction in the exterior yard setback. Number 4, the variance is desirable and appropriate for the use of the land because the subject property is part of a 33-lot plan of subdivision with single detached dwellings. It is located at the eastern terminus of McCrae Crescent as part of the Maple Hills subdivision lands. The proposed minor variance conforms with the adjacent land uses, which are low-density residential. That is everything. Thank you.
And thank you for the deputation. Are there any questions of the deputant? All right, being none. Is there anyone online wishing to speak in support of this application? In support of the application? Anyone online wishing to speak in opposition to the application? Opposition to the application? Being none. Committee. I've got Mrs. Archer, go ahead.
As requested?
Do I have a seconder? Mr. Marsh, all right. Any further comments or questions with respect to the application? All right. Mrs. Archer, in favor or opposed?
In favor?
Mr. Marsh?
Favor.
Okay. Councillor Yo?
In favor?
Mr. Strangway?
In favor?
Mrs. Richardson?
Favor?
And I'm in favor. That carries. So to the deputant, the application is approved. All right, moving right along, we're now dealing with file number D20-2021-022. This is 21 Ryan Road, Geographic Township of Emily. And again, Mr. Stainton, go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The purpose and effect of this application is to request relief from section 12.3.6.1D of the former Township of Emily zoning bylaw in order to reduce the minimum side yard setback from 7.6 meters to 1.2 meters in order to facilitate the construction of an addition to an existing garage. Just to let you know, the construction of the garage is approximately 66 square meters or 710 square feet, and it is a two-bay addition to an existing 70 or 67.5 square meter or 727 square foot two-bay detached garage. The subject property is situated in a quiet shoreline residential neighborhood near the end of an extension of Ryan Road on the south side of the Pigeon River before it transitions to Pigeon Lake. The neighborhood consists of secluded waterfront lots and backlots, primarily comprised of 1- and 2-story vacation and single detached dwellings. Here's a site plan of the property showing the proposed location of the addition to the garage in relation to the rest of the property. So you can see the existing garage here with the addition here to the south. Shown here is a partial elevation of the proposed addition. Note the height will be in compliance with the general provisions for accessory buildings and structures, and the eave projection is in accordance with the provisions as well. The applicant provided a very long drawing, so I took a partial just illustrating the addition only. The topography of this property varies considerably and is highest in the southern portion of the property. The existing dwelling is shown on the left with a tiered wooden deck that actually steps down on the western side of the property before transitioning to manicured lawn and the shoreline. The southern section of the property is densely wooded with mixed deciduous forest. The proposed location of the garage addition is shown in the slide on the right. So just to the south of the existing garage. Shown on the left is the previously mentioned west side of the dwelling with the deck transitioning to the shoreline. And the photo on the right is provided just to show spatial separation between the corner of the dwelling, which you can see here, here on the left side of the photo. And then on the right side of the photo, you can see the terminus of the north wall of the detached garage. As the section of Ryan Road to the north of the subject lands, which is shown here on the slide to the right, actually, is ultimately a dead end, traffic is minimal, and the garage will comply with the front yard setback requirements. It's important to note that that Ryan Road is a private road. The slide on the left shows that Ryan Road to the south and to the north again on the right-hand side. So this photo here is taken facing south with the proposed location of the garage probably ending somewhere around, well, off the photo here, and this is taken to the north. As mentioned, the woodland consisting of a variety of coniferous and deciduous trees is located in the southern portion of the lot, as seen in the photo on the right-hand side. The increasing grade to the south of the property provides additional screening of the garage from the neighboring lot to the south, mitigating any potential privacy concerns to the neighboring property. By constructing into the slope, there are no massing or built form implications through this proposal. The proposed 1.2 meter maintains access to the south of the proposed garage for building maintenance and lot drainage purposes. The photo on the left was taken facing to the east of the proposal. So it's facing the opposite side of Ryan Road. And basically just is taken to show and categorize the privacy that is in this area. What, did I skip? No, I didn't. The existing two-bay garage was constructed in 1997 according to MPAC, and is, as you can see, constructed partially into the slope that rises to the west, as seen in the photo on the left. So you can see it rising here. Extending the garage to the north would be impractical, as the entranceway to the property would be impeded, and a separate detached garage would be challenging to construct given the location of the septic bed, which is within the front yard of the subject lands. The uneven grade also presents some challenges and difficulties with respect to construction. The addition, which will essentially double the size of the existing garage, is required in order to facilitate the storage of 2 classic cars. The existing garage will continue to serve primarily as storage, and the exterior design and treatments will match the appearance of the existing detached garage as it identified within Appendix D and is shown in both of these slides. Comments were received from Engineering and Corporate Assets Division and the Building and Septic Division, stating that they have no objections to the proposal. In addition, the Supervisor of Part H sewage systems of the Building and Septic Division notes that a site visit was completed to locate and assess the on-site sewage disposal system. The sewage system was observed to be located in the roadside yard of the dwelling. The proposed garage addition was located outside the required clearance distance to the existing septic system. In addition, the garage will not incorporate any habitable space or plumbing. As such, the Building and Septic Division has no objections to the proposed garage addition as it relates to private on-site sewage disposal. Kawartha Conservation provided informal comments on the variance application itself, noting that a permit under their regulation has been issued in order to facilitate construction of the addition to the detached garage. There was a geotechnical review component that was conducted as part of the permit, and the review was quite comprehensive, with the necessity demonstrated in the photos taken here. Based on the contents of the report, staff acknowledges the application meets all 4 tests of a minor variance, and staff respectfully recommends approval of the subject application, which is subject to the conditions identified within the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stainton. Are there any questions of the planner by committee members? All right, being none, is the applicant online? Does the applicant wish to speak to the application? I don't. Oh, we're looking, Ryan, no one?
She is online, Mr. Chair.
Oh, there she is. Miss.
Hello, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much.
Okay, and your name is?
My name is Ann Palmer.
All right, go ahead.
I just wanted to thank the committee members for looking at our application. This has been a long time in the planning, but we're hoping that the approval will go through. Mr. Stainton was very helpful with us in guiding us through because we've never done anything like this before. We have tried to abide by all the conditions put to us by the City of Kawartha Lakes, and when we build it, hopefully, by the Kawartha Lakes Conservation. So thank you very much for looking at our application.
All right,
And thanks, Ken.
and thank you for your kind comments regarding Mr. Stainton. We always appreciate positive comments about our staff. They do an excellent job. All right, are there any questions of committee members to the applicant? All right, being none, thank you very much. Is there anyone online wishing to speak in support of this application? In support of this application? Anyone wishing to speak in opposition to the application? Opposition to the application? All right, being none, committee, where are we? Okay, Mr. Strangway?
As written, approval.
All right, and I seen Mrs. Richardson's hand. You're seconding that, Mrs. Richardson?
Yes, I'm seconding it.
All right, thank you. Any further comments or questions by committee? All right, Mr. Strangway, in favor or opposed?
In favor.
Mrs. Richardson?
In favor?
Mrs. Archer?
In favor?
Mr. Marsh?
In favor.
And Councillor Yeo?
In favor.
Yeah, and I'm in favor. So thank you very much. Your application is approved.
Thank you.
All right, moving right along. We'll deal with this application, then I think we'll take 5. So this one here is file number D20-2021-023. This is 15 Lila Court, Geographic Township of Emily. And we got Mr. Harding back. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. All right. So this application, there are 5 particular reliefs that are proposed. So we have one that is to reduce the minimum water setback for both a single detached dwelling and for a accessory building in the rear yard. We're also doing the same thing to reduce the EP zone setback to match what the water setback reduction is that's being sought. We are also looking at increasing the number of accessory buildings on the property from 3 to 4, and to do a very slight increase in total accessory building lot coverage, and also to reduce the interior side yard setback of one of the accessory buildings. So this parcel is located on Lila Court. It's number 15 Lila Court. So this is a private road and a shoreline residential subdivision on the south side of Pigeon River. We have the mix of seasonal and year-round single detached dwellings. And here we have the subject parcel site plan here. So with respect to the renovations that are proposed for the dwelling, what we're doing really is altering the roof line in this section of the dwelling. You will see that it's currently more like a hip roof type construction, and they are raising the wall in order to increase the height within the bedroom, which benefits from this wall. So we have a picture of the parcel from Lila Court. So we've got one of the accessory buildings to the left here. And then we see the house situated up behind. So what committee will note as I move into the parcel is that there's a slight rise from the road up to the house. The house is situated on a bit of a ridge, which runs east-west, and then there's a more substantial drop off into the river below. So I've moved up behind the garage here to take the picture of the dwelling on the image on the left. And then I've just pivoted on that point basically to look back. Sorry, no, I've actually walked across to this section over here beside the dwelling and have taken the picture out across the front yard towards Lila Court again here. So we've got the 2 accessory buildings noted in the front yard. So they're not overly imposing in relation to the dwelling due to their scale and their overall height. We can see in this other image, the image on the left here, one of the other accessory buildings. So this is tucked in behind the garage when viewed from the road. So I walked up onto that deck and again looked back out towards the front property line for the image on the left. And on the right, just pivoting again to give committee a better sense of what the front yard looks like. So as we can see here, the accessory buildings still do not dominate the form of the front yard. We still have a lot of landscaping there and open amenity space. So now I've pivoted on that same spot on the deck, looking more towards the shoreline, both of those images. So we've got the existing house pretty much front and center on the image on the right, and then just off to the left on the image on the left there. A committee will note that there's this kind of covered woodshed building that no longer exists. And then we've got the greenhouse / storage shed that's situated behind that. So I've now moved in the image on the left to pretty much in front of the storage shed, looking towards the back face of the house. So this is where all of the alterations are proposed. So as you can see here, we do have a gable roof design, but it's at its lowest point here. So by adding the gable that faces the shoreline, that's where we're getting that additional wall height. So in terms of the actual increase in built form, it's still relatively minor because we're not adding another story. We're just adding a little bit more height to have a additional ceiling room. And then I pivoted, I've walked over to the deck on that image on the left and looked back to the east to capture that greenhouse storage shed building that relief is also sought for, and it's in line with the dwelling, so it's not any closer to the shoreline. And now I've walked down to the shoreline to look back up towards the parcel for these other photographs here. So as we can see in both of these images, the greenhouse storage shed is in line with the boathouse, and the boathouse is very modest, very, very old, and does not have a lot of good storage opportunity to store all of the water-related amenity toys that one would find on a cottage property, which is why the owners have advised that some of those items are stored in this building up above. So it's a multi-purpose storage shed. And this makes sense to permit it in this location due to this shed's proximity to the shoreline and to the existing boathouse. And then we have now, and this is these photos are actually taken by the owners. This is the eastern wall face of this greenhouse storage shed, which is the contentious variance that's have been applied for. So as a result of these photographs, we can see that the eaves that do project on that side are quite minimal, which is good. I believe they advise that it's about 3 inches of the wall face, or that it projects 3 inches out from the wall face rather. So we have minimal projection there. So we know that they're not encroaching onto the abutting parcel. I did have a conversation with the building division as well after their original comments were submitted, and they've advised that they will be satisfied with the reduced proximity if the interior wall, eastern wall, is drywalled. So the owners have been advised of that. Just moving back to the overview of the parcel here. So I believe that most of the variances do meet the 4 tests for minor variance. The lot is large enough to absorb all of these additional accessory buildings. The accessory buildings on their own are very modest in scale and height. And we have 3 of them, which are all pretty much in line with one another on the eastern lot line. So they're all kind of hiding behind one another, which helps reduce that overall visual impact when the property is being viewed from the road or from the shoreline. With respect to the zoning as well, so this property is zoned into service residential, which does permit residential uses, year-round uses as well. With respect to the zoning bylaw, the one issue that that staff have is really this reduced interior side yard setback for that one shed. So the challenge we have is, we know the shed has existed for some time, but we have to treat it like it doesn't exist, because that's how zoning is applied for buildings like this, where relief is being sought for for permitting the structures in these locations. The challenge is that even if they, at that 0.45 meter setback, rather, it's still quite tight for maintenance purposes. So staff still aren't comfortable with supporting the variance for that reduced yard setback on the basis of it being such a small space in order to perform maintenance on that side of the building. However, staff are agreeable with permitting the building with the reduced setback to the shoreline because it does tie, there's those shoreline storage functions that tie in so well with the boathouse. So as a result, so staff does respectfully recommend that the application for all the other variances, they accept the one for the reduced interior side yard setback for the accessory building be approved, and that the setback for the accessory building reduction respectfully be denied. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Stainton. Just for clarity for the committee, so you're suggesting that the building division was okay with the 0.45 meters if they drywall that wall? Is that what you said? Did I hear you
That
correct?
is correct.
Thank you. All right. Back to the committee. All right, committee questions to the planner? Mrs. Archer, go ahead.
For you, please, to the planner, how do the owners rectify this problem with the greenhouse then?
Well, I suppose it depends on the approach that committee wants to take. So from the building division standpoint, the code can be satisfied if the interior eastern wall of that building is drywalled.
But that won't help the maintenance area of the, like your problem is the maintenance of the outside, correct?
Yes, that is correct. And just to add to that as well. So engineering, you've probably seen their comments. So they're not happy about it, but they are willing to agree to it because the building has existed in that location for so long. Just to add some additional context to engineering's comments.
So I'm not a builder, I don't understand. What's the purpose of drywalling it?
I believe, through the chair, I believe that it has to do with a fire rating.
Oh, thank you.
Further questions of the planner? All right, being none, I see the applicant on stream there. Okay. Mr. Battersby, is it?
Yes, it's William Battersby.
Go ahead, sir.
So I'm going to talk to item 3, that the greenhouse. So I'd just like to start off by saying that the greenhouse was built to replace or to give us extra storage. And what was there when we originally bought the home in 1999 was a tin shed. So when we built the greenhouse, we made it the same distance from the waterfront as our residence and the same distance from the lot line that the aluminum shed was there. So we thought that we were doing the right thing in that we could do that. So it's not any malice on our part that we just decided to just go ahead and build it, but we believe that we were putting it in a better spot than what the tin shed was at. So since we've been talking with Dave through the pre-screening, it started out that a discussion about moving this greenhouse south, actually 2.5 meters to satisfy the 15 meters from the water. And so that involved getting contractors involved to come in and have a look to see how we could move that greenhouse. And it was identified by the contractor due to the power lines that are in between our home and the garage, a hoist or a crane would be not able to get under the greenhouse without being impacted by the power line. So that was the first attempt. The next attempt was contacting a contractor to see if we could lift the greenhouse and move it back 2.5 meters, not having anything to do with the side lot measurement at this point. And the same thing came up was when the contractor looked at it and determined that the foundation was built on 4x4 timbers, and the joists for the floor were attached to those 4x4 timbers, and the corners of each part of the greenhouse, in each corner, an 8-foot post with a sonotube, and it was concreted in place to hold that foundation of 4x4s in place. And then the floor joists were put on there, and 2 sets of floor were put there because we were going to actually store motorcycles in there. We wanted to make sure the floor would hold them. So that's how it was all built. And when they realized that, they're going, how would we ever get that out without cutting off those posts with the sonotubes holding the concrete and everything down? And they said that due to the high slope on the side of the water, that it would be very risky, that once the building would be, unstable. So my final thing, Dave had indicated that, okay, fine, we're good with the 12.5 meters from the water, but we want you to move it 21 3/4 inches from the lot line to make it 1 meter from the neighbor's lot line. So what we did is we had another contractor come in and have a look at it and say, well, we can't move it with the foundation where it is. So what's our other option? We would have to remove 21 3/4 inches of wall and roof and just shorten the greenhouse, leave it where it sits on the foundation to keep it stable. And we would just take off 21 3/4 inches of space. So if you were to do that, you can probably notice on the picture that the windows were centered on the side of the building. The skylights were centered on the roof. So everything would lose 21.5 inches from the lot line and bring it in. And a new wall would have to be constructed inside the greenhouse, and then the old one would be cut out and we would just wall it back in. So it can be done, but aesthetically, it wouldn't be great. And I'd be losing another 21 3/4 inches of storage. We don't have a basement in our home. We have a small crawl space, and it's the same kind of issue with storage in that crawl space as it is in our boathouse, with lots of moisture and mold and everything. So the greenhouse is our go-to spot to store things. So based on what David said about engineering, saying that they've reviewed and they're okay with it, and putting the drywall up for the interior of the greenhouse to prevent if the greenhouse did catch on fire, that it wouldn't, cause any problems with the neighbor's property. So we're willing to do that. We're willing to get a couple of permits for the greenhouse and for the storage shed. We're willing to do that. But I went out this morning and I measured the distance from the outside of my greenhouse on the east side to the outside of the wall of the home that is right next to me. And it's 15 feet 3 inches from the exterior wall of my greenhouse to the exterior wall of the home that is next to me. And in between my home, the greenhouse, and the wall of my neighbors, it's elevated about 4 feet with a retaining wall, and they're using it as a flower bed. So it's unlikely that anything would ever be built there that would ever impact on each of us being 1 meter or 2 meters away from each other. So I'm
Bless you.
I'd like to also thank Dave for everything he's done to this point. He's been very helpful. The screening process worked very good for us to work through issues. And I appreciate the committee listening to me and Dave and for our variance application. And I'm hoping that we can leave our greenhouse exactly where it is.
And drywall it.
And drywall on the inside, and put the tongue and groove pine back on the inside. It's a beautiful building, and I built it with my son, so it has some sentimental value, and I'd like to leave it as is, but if I have to move it, I will do it, or take it right down and start again.
All right. You've laid your case out very well, sir, so we appreciate you taking the time to do that. Are there any questions of the applicant? All right, being none, is there anyone online wishing to speak in support of this application, in support of the application? Anyone online wishing to speak in opposition to the application? Opposition to the application? All right. Committee. Councillor Yeo.
I'd like to give you a motion to approve all 5 of the minor variances and add a condition that I think it's the east wall be drywalled to fulfill the request of the building department.
Do I have a seconder? Mr. Marsh?
Second.
All right. Before I go any further, now, Mr. Harding, are you okay with those conditions as a result of the motion on the floor?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I can add a condition to that effect. And I believe that's the only alteration that would be required is by adding that additional condition. Just give me a moment to review the other conditions in the staff report. All right, so I would recommend, Mr. Chair, if that is committee's wish, for the drywalling component for that eastern wall, that proposed condition number 3 in the staff report would be deleted and substituted with that condition.
Councillor Yeo, okay with that?
Yes, that makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah. Mr. Marsh?
Fine.
Yeah, all right. All right, is everyone clear on the motion on the floor then? All right, I assume they are. All right. So then we will go to the vote. All right, Councillor Yeo.
In favor?
Mr. Marsh?
In favor.
Mr. Strangway?
In favor?
Mrs. Archer?
In favor?
Mr. Richardson?
In favor?
And I'm in favor. So to the applicant, your application has been fully approved. All right.
Thank you very much.
All right, take care.
Thank you.
I think we'll take 5. And we're dealing with file number D20-2021-024, and this is at 1193 Salem Road, geographic of Township of Maripasa, and Mr. Harding. Now, it would appear we've got some correspondence here related to a deferral, so would you like to speak to that, Mr. Harding?
Yes, I would, Mr. Chair. So this is very new correspondence that I just had the opportunity to review this morning, which is supplemental to that file previously. So we have both from Colleen. So we have two correspondence, one that was submitted last week and then a letter this morning, and then another email from her solicitor, Mr. Webster. So with respect to the most recent letter that was received, many of these points go over what was discussed with her as a result of her previous submission last week. But the one which is of most interest to me has to do with the heritage designation of her parcel. And I did have a conversation with our heritage officer this morning, and because her house is designated, the heritage officer has said that there is merit in having the heritage committee review this proposal before a decision is made to determine whether or not there are any adverse impacts on the heritage attributes of this abutting parcel. So I would recommend that this application be deferred for a period of up to 2 months to allow for the heritage committee to complete its review in order to properly comment on this application before committee makes a decision.
Is the applicant online? Okay. We'll bring the applicant on and see.
Okay, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, the applicant, but
Oh, no.
I hear voices. I don't see anybody. It just, is the applicant online?
Hello?
Yep, he's here.
Oh,
You can talk now.
Hello?
Yes. If you can, I'm asking the applicant if you can hear me.
yes, Tom Davis?
All right, Mr. Davis, you've heard what Mr. Harding had to say, I presume. Where are you with this request for deferral?
If they need time, then I'm okay. I would like to start the job, but if it runs into a heritage thing, I'm here to listen.
All right, then. That being the case, committee, I'll go to you. And I guess on a deferral motion, the only thing we debate is time. So first of all, let's get the motion on the floor. So the motion would be that this come back no later than the July meeting. Do I have a mover? Councillor Yeo, do I have a seconder on the deferral motion? Okay, Mrs. Richardson? All right, and so everyone's okay with the come back no later than the July meeting? All right, we'll go to the vote then. Okay, where are we? All right, Councillor Yeo.
In favor?
All right, Mrs. Richardson.
In favor?
All right, Mrs. Archer.
In favor?
Mr. Marsh.
Yep.
Mr. Strangway.
In favor.
And I'm in favor. All right, so the matter is deferred to come back no later than the meeting in July. Thank you, everyone. All right, moving right along, and I believe on this one, Councillor Yeo, you had declared a pecuniary interest.
Yes, I have, and I will excuse myself at this time.
All right, thank you. Okay, we're dealing with D20-2021-025, and this is 39 Lakeview Cottage Road, geographic township of Bexley. And again, Mr. Harding. Go ahead, Mr. Harding.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Bear with me while I share my screen again. There we go. Okay, so this application proposes to recognize the location of a single detached dwelling that was constructed a little bit too close to the interior side, the interior side lot line. So we're going from 1.2 meters down to 1.1. So this property is part of a shoreline residential neighborhood on the northwestern side of Balsam Lake. And there is a mixture of year-round and cottage uses. And there's residential backlot development as well. So we have the picture of the subject property as viewed from the road in both of those images. The image on the right, I've just moved over a little bit to better look at that side yard where relief is being sought. So here we just have images again of the side yard, both looking towards the shoreline and then being at the shoreline looking back. So due to the fact that we're dealing with just a 0.1 meter reduction, it's not going to be very perceptible, and really there will be no adverse impacts to the function of that interior side yard for maintenance purposes, as well as providing access between the front and the rear yards. We have some images of the abutting properties here. The image on the left is the properties that are to the north. So the property is within the waterfront designation of the City of Kawartha Lakes official plan, and residential uses are anticipated within this designation. As I said earlier, we are maintaining the intent of the zone category. So in this case, the parcel is zoned rural residential type 3. The function of an interior side yard is to allow maintenance to be provided on the side wall of the dwelling, as well as to facilitate access between the front and rear yards. Because the reduction being sought is so minimal, it's not going to have any adverse impacts on those preserved functions. And as a result, the application meets the 4 tests for minor variance. So staff would respectfully recommend that the application be granted, subject to the conditions identified in the report. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, sir. All right. Committee members, are there any questions of the planner? All right, being none, is the applicant online? Does the applicant wish to speak to the application?
Yes, hi, committee, I'm the applicant, and I'd just like to say I thank staff for getting me here so quickly. And just a word of advice, never assume anything in your life, and double check. And in the end, I should have seen the pin for the surveyor put there was not quite on the right spot. But I thank you for taking the time.
This to you. All right. Anyone wishing to speak in support of the application? In support of the application? Or opposition to the application? Opposition to the application? Being none, committee, where are we? Mr. Strangway.
Approve as requested.
Okay, and I saw Mr. Marsh's hand there, I believe, as a seconder. All right. Any further comments or questions by anyone? Okay. Mr. Strangway, favor or opposed?
In favor.
Mr. Marsh?
Favor.
Mrs. Archer?
In favor?
Mr. Richardson?
Favor.
And I'm in favor. All right, thank you very much, and the application is approved. Moving right along, we're now dealing with file number D20-2021-026, and this is 27 North Taylor Road, Geographic Township of Eldon, and we got Mr. Stainton back.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The purpose and effect of this application is to request relief from the following provisions in order to permit the construction of an addition to an existing detached dwelling, as well as a new partially enclosed deck. As it relates to the detached dwelling, a reduction in the minimum front yard setback from 7.5 meters to 4.1 meters is being proposed. With respect to the deck, an increase in the maximum lot coverage for all accessory buildings and structures, excluding outdoor swimming pools, from a 10% of the lot area to a maximum of 100 square meters for a lot within the limited service residential zone to 103.9 square meters. The subject property is situated on an island in Mitchell Lake that facilitates the crossing of Portage Road. Many of the dwellings along North Taylor Road in this neighborhood were constructed prior to the 1970s and are smaller in size and height. The dwelling is being raised to accommodate a basement that will effectively double the gross floor area and provide a walkout to the rear yard. The proposed partially enclosed deck will effectively serve as an extension of the main floor and provide additional amenity space for the proposal. Shown here is a site plan and elevation survey of the property. The applicant initially proposed a reduced front yard setback associated with the construction of a new 5.95 square meter or 64 square foot ground floor addition. So that was, it was actually a mud room. It's actually a mud room and it's located right about here. Through the pre-screening process, which was submitted in February of 2021. Through the pre-screening process, an additional relief pertaining to the maximum lot coverage for accessory buildings and structures via the 46.29 square meter or approximately 500 square foot partially enclosed wooden deck was identified. This slide shows the elevation drawings associated with the proposal, with the east elevation showing the bump out here and the view from the water shown here on the upper right. The western elevation is in the bottom left, with the southern or the roadside elevation on the lower right. Shown here is the basement floor plan with some 3D renderings that are on the right, the slide to the right. These are essentially a continuation of Appendix D and can be found in the report. The topography of the front yard slopes to the north and towards the front of the dwelling from the road. Since the owner intends on raising the dwelling to accommodate a basement, the addition will be level with the grade once raised. As the dwelling does not currently have a front entrance as seen on the left, the addition will enable direct access from the driveway. As mentioned, the construction of the partially enclosed deck will increase the rear yard amenity space by offering a level place to enjoy the front yard views as seen in the slide on the right here. The subject property and the property to the east, which is 31 North Taylor Road, which is shown actually on the right here, are older one-story dwelling units. The property to the west at 25 North Taylor Road is a two-story newer build, which is actually shown on the left here. It's anticipated that this neighborhood will experience a change in built form over time, trending towards larger and as well as higher dwellings. The front yard, as shown here, is screened from the west by a row of conifers that you can see in the background here. On the slide to the left, delineating the western property line, and there is a cedar hedge that's immature but growing, planted running parallel to the front lot line. You can see that in both slides actually. Both the vegetated buffers assist in concealing any intrusion presented through the small addition to the front yard. Moreover, there is no uniform established building line for the front yards along North Taylor Road, and the encroachment is minor enough to blend in with this trend. The photo on the right, again, is taken looking northeast along North Taylor Road. The intent of the front yard setback is to provide separation between the road and residential uses. However, North Taylor Road does not appear to experience a lot of traffic due to the proximity to the arterial Portage Road. There are no anticipated land use compatibility issues presented with the front yard to road interface, as more than 4 meters exists between the limit of the addition and the front lot line. Through raising the dwelling, the prominence of the south face of the dwelling will be increased. However, the addition will not impose on the streetscape. The slide on the left shows the front face of the dwelling here with the broom handle right here showing the extent of the addition. The slide on the right shows the front face of the dwelling facing northeast in the opposite direction with the broom handle you can see in the distance here. Again, the slide on the left basically captures the front yard nicely with the slide on the right showing in the opposite direction. Photo on the left. These photos here actually capture the view of the front yard from North Taylor Road facing towards Mitchell Lake. And the slide on the right basically shows the front yard looking towards North Taylor Road. So you can see a considerable distance from here. You also have the pine tree as well right here. So no impacts to the interface are anticipated. The photo on the left here captures a boathouse on the property that was constructed in 1965, according to MPAC. And it is currently under construction as it is being shifted to the east to comply with the side yard setback requirement for boathouses. A detached garage, oh, sorry about that. A detached garage constructed in 2004, according to MPAC, is located immediately to the east of the dwelling, which will be shown in the next slides. The slide on the right just captures the shoreline of Mitchell Lake to the north. All development is at least 30 meters from the shoreline in conformity with the waterfront designation of the official plan and is greater than 15 meters from the shoreline in compliance with the provisions of the Township of Elton zoning bylaw. The general provisions set a maximum lot coverage of 10% for accessory buildings or structures to a maximum of 100 square meters within the limited service residential zone. The proposal complies with the total maximum lot coverage provision within the LSR zone category and is actually less than the threshold necessary for accessory coverage at 7.75%. However, the small increase of 3.91 meters over the maximum 100 square meters is negligible, and the increased lot coverage does not impair the available area of landscape amenity space or the appearance of the property. As you can see, there's ample spatial separation between the boathouse, where the proposed deck will be, as well as the garage, which is shown here on the left. The slide on the right here just shows the limit of the proposed deck. You can see it kind of transitions before dropping off right about here. Comments were received from Engineering and Corporate Assets Division and the Building and Septic Division, stating that they have no objections to the proposal. In addition, the Supervisor of Part 8 Sewage Systems of the Building and Septic Division notes that a site visit was conducted to review the proposal and the location of the construction as it relates to the sewage system. A sewage system installation permit has been issued for the property. The sewage system is located at a clearance distance to the dwelling that will not be hindered by the proposal. As well, the proposal will not cause a capacity or component issue for the existing sewage system. As such, the Building and Septic Division have no objection to the proposed minor variance as it relates to the private on-site sewage system. Since the writing of the report, the Lake Simcoe Region Conservation Authority has identified that the property is outside of their jurisdiction. However, the property is subject to the Lake Simcoe Protection Plan. LSRCA, or the Lake Simcoe and Region Conservation Authority, is satisfied from a watershed management perspective that the proposal is consistent with the natural hazard policies of the PPS and in conformity with other provincial policies and the Lake Simcoe Protection Plan. The proposal will not constitute a residential intensification as a new residential use within any hazard lands. Based on the contents of the report, staff acknowledges the application meets all 4 tests of a minor variance, and staff respectfully recommends approval of the application subject to the conditions identified within the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Staton. Are there any questions of the committee to the planner? All right, being none, is the applicant online? Does the applicant wish to speak to the application?
Chair, Michelle Thompson.
Thank you. Go ahead, ma'am.
Hi, good afternoon, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to take a moment and just thank Mr. Staton for all his help. And the advice about the minor or the pre-screening was very good advice. It really helped us along the way. And he is very helpful, I have to say. This is something I've never done before. So the main reason that we're wanting to put this addition on is to give us access to the from the driveway. That's the most important thing. And with us lifting the cottage, it's going to give us some additional space to house our water heater and furnace. So those are the two main reasons why we're moving forward, and we would appreciate your support. And that's it.
Thank you very much, and our planners do an excellent job, and we appreciate your comments with respect to that. So thank you again. Are there any questions of the applicant by committee members? All right, being none, is there anyone online wishing to speak in support of this application? In support of the application? Anyone online wishing to speak in opposition to the application? In opposition to the application? Committee? I've got Mrs. Archer.
As printed?
Okay, and Councillor Marsh, I saw your hand there, I believe. All right. Any further comments or questions by committee members? All right. Mrs. Archer, in favor or opposed?
In favor?
Mr. Marsh?
Favor.
Mr. Strangway?
In favor.
All right. Mrs. Richardson?
In favor?
All right. Councillor Yeo?
In favor.
And I'm in favor. Thank you very much. Application is approved.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, just smoking right along here. We're now dealing with file number D20-2021-027. And this is 93 Shadow Lake Road 53, Geographic Township of Bexley. And again, go ahead, Mr. Staton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The purpose and effect of this application is to request relief from section 13.2.1.3 subsection E to reduce the minimum water setback from 15 meters to 8.52 meters in order to permit the construction of a one-story replacement dwelling and an attached wooden deck. The applicant submitted a pre-screening application for review of the replacement dwelling and associated wraparound deck involving a reduced water setback late in September of 2020. Through the pre-screening process, the location of the septic system was changed and an alternative configuration for the wraparound deck and the northern roof line was agreed upon. The subject property is located on the southwestern shore of Silver Lake, adjacent to the outlet to the Gull River. The property is accessed via a private easement for a right-of-way known as Shadow Lake Road number 53. The neighborhood is composed of seasonal as well as year-round residential uses. The subject property is the second last, as you can see here, second last lot on Shadow Lake Road number 53. Single story as well as two-story dwelling designs are found within the 8 to 10 lots that are situated along this shoreline access through Shadow Lake Road 53. The subject property is shaped like a parallelogram, lacking a lot of width. An elevated single-story dwelling was constructed in 1957, according to MPAC, with a wraparound wooden deck that is located in the northeastern section of the property before the land essentially slopes towards the shoreline. An accessory storage building identified here as the existing frame shed is located to the west of the current dwelling and is proposed to remain following construction of the new build. This is basically the lot drainage and grading plan associated with the proposal. So shown here are the elevations of the proposal with the slide on the left facing northwest. So this would be the water side. And the slide on the right facing southeast, the opposite side. Again, elevations with the east and west side shown here on the left, as well as the proposed roof line shown here. The footprint of the proposed replacement dwelling ensures the proposed wraparound deck does not project further into the water setback, but allows for a sufficient size to transition between the main floor and the water yard. This ensures as much area as possible is preserved for infiltration as well as for amenity purposes. The proposal also ensures the maximum spatial separation between the sewage system and the shoreline to the north. Further, the proposed one-story design ensures a low profile in keeping with the established built form of the nearby dwellings. Shown on the left is again the existing single-story dwelling with an overview of the lot taken on the right. You can see the water in the background. Here's the accessory frame structure, as well as the existing single attached dwelling. Shown here is the shoreline and the abutting properties. So this is the property to the east, as well as, so you can see the built form and the large deck, as well as the property to the west, shown here. Well-developed vegetated buffers comprised of cedar hedges and individual cedar trees are located along the eastern and western property boundaries. So shown here in these two slides is the western property boundary with the slide on the left. So this is closer to the shoreline. You can see the abutting dwelling. And then this photo on the right is taken just a little bit further south, sort of beyond where the accessory shed is located. The screening, it's important to note too that the screening maintains privacy between the lots on either side of the lot, So on here we have again, the eastern boundary. So this is towards the shoreline on the right. And then again, further south shown here. The intent of the water setback is to protect built form from natural hazards and protect and enhance the ecological function of water bodies by creating a buffer between built form and water for the establishment of vegetation. The setback reduction preserves as much of a buffer as possible given the configuration of the lot. Overall, the requirement for a new advanced wastewater treatment system combined with its location results in a net benefit for Silver Lake and its ecosystem. The presence of the existing accessory building prevents the dwelling from being situated further to the south in the lot without requiring relief from the interior yard requirements. Shown on the left here is the shoreline of the property facing eastward, with the slide on the right facing westward. Policy 3.11 of the official plan permits development within 30 meters of the shoreline on existing lots of record where it is demonstrated that the following criteria are met. A, the 30-meter water setback cannot be met. In this case, the property itself is only 29.82 meters wide at the shoreline. In order to accommodate a new driveway with adequate parking, the existing accessory building and the new septic system without presenting potential drainage implications to the adjacent properties, staff is of the opinion that this condition has been met. B, development is to be directed away from the shoreline as much as possible. The proposal acknowledges the extent of the existing encroachment towards the shoreline, considering the constraints placed by the accessory shed, septic system footprint, and the driveway and parking on the subject lands. C, a vegetation protection zone is established to the maximum extent possible. The proposal attempts to direct built form away from the shoreline and is an improvement over the original submission. Kawartha Conservation encourages the owner to maintain a naturally vegetated shoreline through their comments found in Appendix E. D, the septic system be elevated 0.9 meters above the water table. The lot drainage and grading plan that was provided shows this criterion is met. E, the impact of the expansion or reconstruction is minimized to the maximum extent possible. The proposal acknowledges the existing limit of development in the water setback and does not encroach or expand further towards the shoreline. A lateral expansion is required in order to accommodate the septic system and lessen the vertical built form within the water setback. So what we have here is the slide on the left is showing the existing single detached dwelling as well as the water setback, and this was taken down from the shoreline. With the photo on the right here just showing the extent of the existing deck, and you can see in the background here the shoreline. Criterion F, in no case shall the development be less than 15 meters to the high water mark. The lot has insufficient width to comply with the water setbacks for both the dwelling and septic system. The intent of the policy is not to extinguish the residential use, but to improve upon shoreline setbacks when development or redevelopment occurs. Limited opportunity remains to further enhance the shoreline setback without increasing the overall height of the building or bringing the sewage system closer to the shoreline. A taller building presents more of a prominent built form and is contrary to the designation's other policies that encourage low profile development. Through placing the new sewage system between the shoreline and the dwelling would also direct leachate to run towards the lake, which is counter to the buffering policy to lessen environmental impacts. Ultimately, the variance maintains the general intent and the purpose of the official plan. It is important to note to the committee that the applicant proposed a configuration in which the deck would encroach into the water setback further than the footprint of the existing deck. The configuration was modified, much to staff appreciation, so that no encroachment was proposed. A subsequent review of the elevation drawings revealed that the roof line actually projected past the limit of the deck footprint in a cantilevered manner. The roof line has since been revised as shown in Appendix D, so that there is no projection past the footprint of the deck. Again, staff appreciates the willingness of the owner to work with staff. The existing footprint of the deck is shown in the slide on the right, as I mentioned. Upon conducting the site visit associated with the variance application, planning staff identified a small garden shed located to the northeast of the single detached dwelling, as shown here on the left. The shed is non-compliant with the general provisions of the zoning bylaw. The owner has agreed to move the garden shed during construction of the new dwelling. A condition is recommended to ensure that the garden shed is entirely removed from the property. Comments were received from Engineering and Corporate Assets Division, as well as the Building and Septic Division, stating they have no objections to the proposal. Building and Septic Division note that a lot drainage and grading plan is required as part of the building permit process. The lot drainage and grading plan has been prepared and will form part of the building permit. In addition, the supervisor of Part 8 sewage systems states that a sewage system permit to install has been issued for the property. The sewage system is being located at the rear property line on the road side of the lot. The proposed water setback will support servicing of the property with a private sewage disposal system. As such, the Building and Septic Division has no objection to the proposed minor variance as it relates to private on-site sewage disposal. Kawartha Conservation Authority has no concerns with the variance. After asking for clarification on the flood elevation for Shadow Lake and Silver Lake, since one does not exist, comments were revised in that the ground floor elevation should be 1 meter above the normal high water mark. Based on the lot drainage and grading plan, this is more than achieved. Due to the reduced setback, Kawartha Conservation encourages the applicant to maintain a naturally vegetated shoreline. No permits are required as the property is outside of Kawartha Conservation's jurisdiction. Public comments were received from Darlene and Dana Brandt of 89 Shadow Lake Road, number 53, on April 8th, 2021, in support of the application as part of a complete application package. The comments can be found in Appendix F of the report. Based on the contents of the report, staff respectfully recommends approval of this application subject to the conditions identified within the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stainton. Committee members, any questions of the planner? All right, being none, is the applicant online? Does the applicant wish to speak to the application? Oh, I see something happening.
Yep, yes.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say that I found the pre-screening meeting very helpful. Kent's been great, and I tried to work really hard to meet all the requirements, and I hope that it's approved. Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. We were advised by staff that you were most willing to work with staff, so we always appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Are there any questions of the committee to the applicant? All right, being none, committee, where are we? I see Mr. Marsh's hand, yep. You going to move it as printed?
But as printed.
Do I have a seconder? Mrs. Archer? All right. Any further comments or questions with respect to that? All right, then I will call the question. Mr. Marsh, favor or opposed?
In favor.
Mrs. Archer?
In favor?
All right. Mr. Richardson?
Favor.
Yeah. Mr. Strangway?
In favor?
Councillor Yo?
In favor.
And I'm in favor. All right, thank you very much. The application is approved.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. All right, committee, it looks like we've pretty well exhausted our things. And to Ms. Barry, I can assure you that at one of these meetings, we're going to have some really tough questions for you. So just so you're prepared. All righty. Is there anything
Mr.
under
Chair,
other
the
or new
day is
business?
young. Are you sure you don't have anything for me?
Yeah, hang in there. We'll get something. All right. Anything under other or new business by committee members?
I was just wondering if Kent and David need a raise to pay for all these guys saying how wonderful they are.
Just hoping that, they don't get swelled heads over this because, these things happen and it could very well interfere with their thought processes down the road, I'm saying. So you're okay with that? All righty. Well, we don't have a whole lot, so if I may, if I'm not out of line, I'd like to say, go Leafs, go. And, okay, I guess that looks like it. Next meeting is June 17th at 1 p.m. I want to thank everyone for their patience. I think these meetings have really worked out well, and that's all due to our staff and our committee working together and being patient, and it's all worked out. So I need a motion to adjourn. Mr. Richardson, did I see your hand there? All right, Mrs. Richardson, do I have a seconder? Mr. Strangway, did I see your hand? All right. Okay, moved in second. All right. All those in favor? Okay, we'll go with Mr. Richardson. Favor or non-favor?
Oh, not in favor.
All right.
No,
That's
I'm
one
in favor,
opposed. Sorry, it's too late now. One opposed. Yeah. All right. All right, in favor. Mr. Strangway?
Definitely in favor.
All right. Mrs. Archer?
In favor?
Mr. Marsh?
In favor.
All right. And Councillor Yo?
In favor.
All right, and I'm in favor. Everyone take care and stay safe.
Thanks, Lloyd.
Thank you.